All right, well, first of all, I appreciate everybody joining us today. I was asked by Jimmie to help moderate this session. We've actually, been working with Jimmie's team for a really long time, and I was very pleased to get the invitation to help. But it's really these guys' show. I'm just going to help lead us through it and keep them on time. But I thought we were going to start it off with some introductions because let everyone know who y'all are, and then let's get going.
So for those of you that don't know me, Jimmie Hardin, I'm the Director of Analytics for Infrastructure and Sustainability. I could spend 45 minutes trying to describe to you what infrastructure and sustainability was because it changes on a daily basis itself. Been here at Tech on and off for about 13 years now. Started off as an academic advisor in chemical engineering of all things. Went from that to an information analyst, to a data scientist, to a data analyst, to a director of analytics, to at one point in time I was a consultant for a national planning firm in there too. So I think kind of had quite a few roles here at Georgia Tech, but some even all the way back to the academic advisor days. The very first questions I was asking was about reporting and data analytics. Poor Zach Hayes was the first person to ever receive my ire when it came to crystal reports and academic reporting on this campus. So for those of you that are familiar.
I'm Jim Stevens. I'm the Senior Associate Vice President in Infrastructure and Sustainability. And so I do things ranging from maintenance utilities, finance, HR communications, and a few other things that are mixed in there. I graduated here 35 years ago and left and came back about a year ago, a little over a year ago. And my background has been all through high-speed automation and manufacturing operations all the way through about another 13, 14 years in higher ed, probably before here, Florida State University. And data has always been a part of almost everything that I've been working with because automation it starts with the data and then you manipulate the data to do different things. One good thing about data in higher ed that's different than data in manufacturing is that when you're pulling your information in a robotic type of automation, you have to be really careful because you can kill people. So that is one nice thing about higher ed automation over what I did on the manufacturing side.
Allegedly, I don't know. We might be. I don't know.
Let's jump into it. So first, Jim, I'm hoping that you can speak a little bit more on what your vision is for the digital transformation, and also why do you think right now is an opportune time to pursue that vision?
Yeah, so that's, if any of you have been tracking state budgets, and I was in manufacturing too when we had a lot of business going to Mexico, then later to China. The fact is, we just don't have enough resources to have all the jobs that we have. And the tech's going to continue to grow, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be a unit per unit increase in what we have. And we're going to have to find ways to drive cost out of our operations and doing it in a way, I think that if you were to, eliminate just a certain number of positions a year, you wouldn't actually eliminate anyone working here because we have between retirements and people taking a new job, you have a lot of natural turnover. But if we can take things that are waste and we can push them out of our system using techniques like RPA or any other types of automations, we can save a whole lot of money for the university. We can concentrate and take less interesting jobs and make them more interesting and really have a whole lot better impact towards our university goals. And I think that when I was in manufacturing, we had, for example, packaging lines had maybe 6 people. And when I left the industry, we were down to 2. Machines could do just as much or more at a higher quality level. And we kept the people in roles that really require that extra skill. But if it could be automated, the machines can very much repeat those types of things. And so that's really where I see we're at now. It's a matter of need, where the kind of the budget in the world is, and Plus, the machines can make our lives a little easier too if we do it right. So do it wrong and make it harder though. So,
From that, what do you think are your primary objectives or your primary goals at the outcome of the transformation?
so I think if we can get, for example, we have, legacy systems, and RPA works really good with legacy systems. So if you're keying in here and then keying that information in another system, you can take RPA and you can automate your processes and do things like that. Nobody wants to key in data by hand into another system, but we do it. We have groups that do that every day around here. The other part is that you don't want to automate a bad process. So if you have a bad process, I see us putting in a lot of effort in making our processes good in the first place. And if you have the capability of automating it, it makes a lot of sense, but you never want to automate a bad process or just have something that can do bad things faster. So, and so I think a lot of it is in this day of technology, and I think I saw one of the presentations where the thing was, everybody uses data or something, and I think that's really important to understand because we tend sometimes to use a lot of consultants for things, and sometimes we need consultants, but we also have the responsibility to know our own processes. If we don't know our own processes, it's going to be difficult to optimize it. It's going to be automated. That's pretty much high level.
So I think there's a lot of layers to this, and I think when you first got here and you saw this vision, you saw this need, what were some of the significant hurdles you saw already and you probably expected were hiding out there that y'all were going to have to face?
Well, and in specifically in INS, we have control systems over 1 million data points, and absolutely no one knows how to program, which that shocked me. I came from an environment where we also had a similar size system. I had probably a dozen different people that could program. And so I think in some areas we're just short of the skills to do some very basic things on our systems. And then the other thing that's kind of surprised me is that we've not been process focused. We've been, let's get this one problem solved, and then even if it causes problems in another area or it's not related, well, that's their area, not our area. And so we tend to be very encapsulated, and that really surprised me because coming back as alumni, when I left 35 years ago, the PCs were just coming in, so we had a lot of excuses for maybe not. I had 35 years, and I came back and I'm into this very prestigious university that has state of the art research and everything, and I was just shocked on the systems. And I think a lot of it is that in some pockets, and INS has several of those pockets, we just never did develop the skills for the new technologies that came on over the last 35 years.
So you saw the challenges. I think you recognize a lot of them. What were some steps you took, I think, to prepare yourself, your leadership team, and then everyone else to understand what going through a digital transformation like this was going to take?
So I'm kind of blunt in my directions. I will be nice to everyone and will, hold their hands through it. But I start with the need. We need to do this. If we are going to get where we're going to be as an organization, we have to be willing to make some changes. And I think if you just start with telling people the truth of what you need to accomplish, and then let them know that it's not that terribly scary for us to get there, I think people will step up. And we've had pockets. I mean, we have good pockets in INS, like brag on Jimmie. His group actually does a really good job putting together a lot of data. But we have smart people on the teams. We can figure this out. But you have to start with making the need known, because if people don't see that there's a need, then they look at it and say, well, this is just something else this person's giving me to do. I just start with the need and then say, okay, here's the need. We're a team. Let's get it done. And not anything any fancier or more complicated than that. Because when you think about anything that you set up, if you make it too complicated, no one's going to join you on your quest. So you have to start with a need and then get everyone kind of pushing behind it. And then I think what I do that I think is really important is it has to be team goals. If I tell each one of you that you've got an individual goal and none of those goals are connected, and then you don't feel any need to help your teammates accomplish their goals, guess what? We end up with fragmented organization. I like to set a handful of team goals, everyone work on those, and then everyone understands part of being on teams that we help each other accomplish.
I have one more question for you, then I'm gonna bring it over to Jimmie. What was your response? What was the response you received from the team once you started communicating this vision?
Well, I get a lot of volunteers to jump in and do some of the work. Actually, Tammy's volunteering on a couple of things for me on some of our RPA stuff. And the thing is that other people that felt like maybe they didn't have the chance to learn, they're wanting to learn more. We've got my utility superintendent who's never used some of the technology that we have in the past. He's wanting to learn our MetaSys system, which is the building automation system, and our fluid modeling system, our pipeline for our hydraulic modeling for the campus chilled water system. And so I think when you get everybody involved and you let them know that you're wanting everyone to learn and know their processes, they'll start jumping in. You may have a few people that don't want to. Many times though, that's just fear. So you help people get over the fear, and you help people recognize that most of the stuff, it's not that it's so hard, but it does have to be organized. And so none of this stuff is super, super hard if you just step back and map it out. But then I like to leverage the whole team, not just one member of the team. So I don't want to have like someone who's the only one that knows this one technology topic. I'd rather have 20 people that know a lot about it, but maybe aren't experts. And we can find the one or two experts when we need, but we don't want to say that we're only going to let this one person do it, because what if that one person leaves? I need everybody to know something about it.
All right, Jimmie, let's. I know finance is going through a lot of changes. I think you told me you've had 4 different managers in this year's. What was your response once Jim came in and you heard the strategy for the first time? What did you feel? What did you think?
So sure. So you give Jim the opportunity for his perception of what the response is, and I'm going to tell you what the actual response was. Right? Yeah. Jim, keep your ears closed and everything else too. I think it's worth taking a step back and really talking about what you just said. And then Jim coming into this situation. Me, honestly, coming into a situation where INS is a brand new organization that when I took over this role as director of analytics, there had never been an analytics team before. There was no INS before. It was capital planning, who worked on our IPERM, our finance side of the house. You had sustainability, which was all over campus, right? And plenty of pockets of people just doing incredible work with disjointed environmental health and safety, facilities, infrastructure. You had landscaping. I mean, you guys think about where INS is today. If it's a physical piece of anything on this campus, inside, outside, we touch it from the original conception and idea of this all the way through the maintenance and operation to the end at some point in time. So just the scale and me supporting these smaller units in capital planning, the scale of now 600 to 700 when we're fully staffed, 15 unique different organizations was just absolutely mind-boggling. Well, through that transition, we've had a lot of interims. We've had a lot of people moving over. I'm coming in. I am taking on a couple of individuals that ended up being absolutely incredible, but weren't my hires, into new roles that they had no idea what the heck they were going to be doing, to hiring 2 new roles that I thought I needed. And my first meeting with Jim and Maria Simaluka, who is our VP, and I was transitioning. I was reporting directly to Maria at the time. The first thing I brought up to Jim in that meeting is like, man, I've had 4 bosses in 2 years now. You were number 4. And I was saying this for 2 reasons. One, I was like, stick around. And Maria was awesome in the interim, don't get me wrong. And the predecessors were fantastic as well, and went on to bigger and better things. But the other thing was to show that my team and our drive and those things that we want to do kept progressing without having that solid leadership here. I said, but I just need somebody to tell me that everything I'm doing is the right thing for Georgia Tech. And Jim's response looked me straight in the face. He's like, it's probably not. And I was just, man, that knocked me down for a peg for a second. I was like, holy crap, everything I'm doing is exactly what we should be doing, right? But no, and Jim wasn't trying to insult the work we were doing. He was laying the groundwork to let me know that it's okay if everything we do isn't the perfect solution, that we're continuing to be innovative, we're continuing to push these things forward. And we've got to find the right people for the right positions. And this doesn't mean that we automatically get to add new positions, or we even knew what those positions and those positions descriptions should be for that. But let's start to move people, not necessarily reporting lines, but into more comfortable roles, things that they want to do, things that they want to support, but with that team goal in mind, right? You know, how are we all moving in the right direction? Everything else too. The most refreshing thing about working from Jim is actually a point our keynote speaker made this morning, and it was about denial, right? You know, one thing that Jim and I are both good at, and I think to the chagrin of some of our leadership is that we don't obscure the information. We try to do as best we can to let them know exactly where we're at as an institution. Guys, when I came over here in 2010 from Mississippi State, I grew up as a Delta redneck that ended up being the first one of his family to go to college. Everybody in my high school that didn't make one of the Ivies, and that, you know, that was everybody but one or two people in my high school, because we only had one to go to Harvard and one to Princeton. Georgia Tech was the place to go. If you got out of Mississippi, you came to Tech. That was like the big deal. Right? You know, we've got incredible institutions there, but Tech was the one, you know, and we still are here in the Southeast. And when I got over here in 2010 as an administrator, and I first logged in and saw what we had access to, I said, what the hell is this? We are 15 years behind where Mississippi State University was, you know, and what we had access to, reporting, the data, those sorts of things. So there's always been a strive. My entire career has been built around not data visualization, although I can talk to you about why a pie chart is the worst chart in the world and you should never use it for this entire 45 minutes. That's my passion, but my strive and my goal is to always find solutions to get information, data, streamline, make my life better and everybody else's around us. So when Jim came to me with these ideas, it was a no-brainer, man. I went straight to Google and I said, what the hell is RPA? I was like, let me put these things in. And then number two, we started calling around and trying to figure out, okay, you know, who knows anything about it? And the first thing I told Jim to do, I said, well, check, you know, give Katie Crawford a call. And he said, well, who's Katie Crawford? And so I put the two of them together, and come to find out some of those initiatives were already working, and it was just, you know, off and running at that point.
I paid him $20 to put that plug in for our team.
Yeah, I've got many more plugs. Yeah, you're gonna owe me $3,000 by the time this is over.
So I think there's an underlying current to everything you all said there, and it's, you know, and it's a topic that's come up a lot recently, and that's around psychological safety, right? And y'all had to create a space when you want to try to do something innovative to let people know we're going to try this, and it might flop, or it may not be perfect. And a lot of times we don't have that safety. Some people don't always feel that way. How have y'all gone about trying to create that space and letting people know it's okay if we try this for a week and it doesn't work and we decide to choose it?
I think mainly it's how you relate to people every day. I mean, if you know, at the most core level of this is, I would love everyone on our team to be perfect, right? That every decision they make is right, everything they take right. But then that would put so much pressure on me, because then I would have to hold that same standard, which I'm not capable of. No, I think that would even be as fun. So I think that when people understand that they can explore, they can learn new things, that you never know who's going to take an interest in it. So I've always felt that the best people I know that have learned how to do programming, things like that, really have almost been the ones that are interested in learning about programming. And so when you start throwing things out there that you want to do, and people think about different pieces that need to be done to get there, it's that freedom. You're just trying to release that energy that they've got to go do, and tell them that. But if they're something's holding them back. Like they don't think they're good enough, or maybe I didn't get a computer science degree, or I got, this other, I had work experience 10 years ago or something. The more we can just eliminate those constraints, we're going to do their best. And that's certainly what I do. Just try to create not bad place to be. So.
I think to add to that too, I've had these conversations with my team quite a bit, and they talk about, and in the conferences, anything we've been to, Interact USG, I had this conversation several times just a few weeks ago, and it was about, we talked about my career here at Georgia Tech and those different titles. Well, how did I progress through those titles, right? Were they opportunities? Did I have to leave, come back? There was some of that. I did mention that I left to become a consultant and I came back, but there was two things. It was always, again, a strive and a need to be innovative, to find out those new things, to pick up the phone, to call people, to collaborate with other folks who's doing these things. And then it was, for the most part, I was very lucky, not always, but very lucky, and had leadership that allowed me to work within that arena. You have to have both of those combinations, right? You have to have that freedom to be able to kind of test these things, to identify these things, to understand and move. And again, know that some of them are not going to work out, and that's okay. What they will do is expose other processes, expose other things that we might have to address, right, on a bigger scale. And then, to be quite frank, bring an organization that, if you look across the board, and when I say this, infrastructure and sustainability, with very few examples, are used to being able to take advantage of these types of roles. I wanted to have a conversation with the keynote speaker at the end, because she was talking about some of the largest areas that AI and some of these tools will be in. And it was all, if you guys noticed the 4 categories, all were academic or student focused, with research in there as well too. There was nothing about the administrative side of the house. Now, administration supports all of those roles, and I get that. But we are really exposing a need and the ability and the opportunity to take advantage of these things in these organizations that aren't student facing necessarily, right? But everything we do supports what we do. Luckily, we have good partners in the ELT's office from the research side that are partnering with us and looking at these sorts of things and stuff. So it's been an enormous collaboration, but just the freedom to be able to kind of explore these types of things to see how we can improve.
I think we can connect that back to the administrative excellence work. And you're on a key point, right? And I think sometimes we lose the connection between what you're doing, student success, and how it's driving that student success. So curious, in y'all's words, how you see your work in more detail connected to that student success, or maybe under the definition that our keynote speaker gave.
I'll say one thing: we use a lot of students. We probably got 12 to 15 associated with some of these technology programs we're working on at any given time. So that directly connects. The other piece is that any of us that go anywhere in town that provides any type of service, we know when that service is not great. It's just very frustrating. So the more that even the basic things that we can do on having systems that help us prepare things, or systems that help inform people's status. All of those things are incredibly important for the whole experience, because people just don't want to add information or service. And so a lot of times they don't see the behind it that help us get there. Generally the people who are old, where they feel like they can provide the best service, they don't like providing more service any more than the people like receiving it. So where we can get solutions that can take the stress off, take the focus on the interesting parts of the work, then it can change even the whole interaction from person to person that we have as well. And so I think it definitely ties into to the student success. And then on top of that, so we're a premier institution. We need to have the best of the best in our systems. And best doesn't mean most expensive. Some of the best solutions in the world are the less complicated solutions that everyone understands how they work. Remember that Spy Kids movie, and they had the uncle or something gave them the tool they needed for anything, and it was a rubber band. And so it's almost like that here. Sometimes the things we need to do to solve the problems aren't the complicated integrations of systems, but refining simplification of processes. And then
And another great example is obviously some of you have been directly involved with, but the Living Campus initiatives, right? Where we're basically working with researchers and students across campus to provide our information and our data. Well, that gets real sticky real quick because these kids are way smarter. The researchers are way smarter. They're asking for a lot of data. Like, I don't even know if it exists. So understanding, and one of the things that we did very early on was super simple, and it seems like it's bringing fire to the caveman kind of thing, but it's just tracking what those kind of requests are. What are they looking for? Starting to give me target areas to understand how we're going to provide that information. Make sure that we're mastering a lot of our data sets as well too. That hopefully people that we can try to change the narrative about. You're going to use this data set. We're all going to be reporting out of the same data set. It's been cleaned. It's been modeled. Let's go. But then knowing where we can target, because we have such a wide depth and breadth, and we are generating billions of data points weekly with what we're doing. But researchers, students, a lot of folks don't need access to all of that. So understanding exactly what they need access to, and then how we're going to build the support system using some of these tools to help navigate that and understand better about where to put our limited resources.
Okay, so we've got the vision. Everyone's excited. How did you see some of those initial changes start to roll out? What were some of the more practical things that you saw first?
I guess the most practical things is getting people that had lived with the situations we had for years to say, maybe it's not that good. We can't change it to make it better. Because I think we were missing that one spark on and I'm talking mainly now about some things that we're trying to build a fault diagnostic system and things like that. And there was just missing a spark of how to go forward and get it done. I mean, it had all the material or things available to get it done, just one piece of it. So I think that was the start, is just getting to understand that our day is not where we want to be. I'll give you on that. But when I was looking at their progress, well, based on your progress on this topic, my calculation is that you're going to retire several years before we finish. And this guy was probably, in his early 30s. And that's not a good deliverable for what we need to do. So we just highlighted where we're at and where, more reasonable time for developing, deliverables. And so we're hoping that we're going to have a couple buildings online with our fault diagnostics by the end of this year. We'll probably lose a couple months because he left, but we're going to rank ahead. So,
well, and this is where we really got to take advantage of some of the collaboration and the work that I've done here on campus over the years. And really, again, I don't know who's doing this. I don't necessarily know if anybody's doing this, but I do know who to call, to see or reach out, through that network that we've been able to build, and the incredible work that is happening. I mean, right here with data days, right? These are things that aren't happening at other institutions, guys. This is just an amazing, to me, necessity, because we can't do the sorts of things we want to do internally. Jim just talked about it. He walked into a situation where there wasn't a single coder across all of INS. I have one DBA for the 20 some odd systems that we manage, right? We had no BI developers. I was it, and everything else too. So how do we start to understand and how do we pull resources or collaborate and get resources from other individuals on campus? EADI, OIT, Darren Hubbard's team, Katie Crawford, all of these folks, and this is where that other 20 bucks starts rolling in. That they were our first phone calls. It's like, we have collaborated. We were on the front end many years ago, and I just happened to be downstairs when EDM was created, and they were on the second floor of Lyman Hall, and I happened to be on the first floor with capital planning. And just through some collisions with these guys and talking about some of the things that they were doing, Very early on, they were looking at different ways to get reporting out outside of Crystal reports, GT reports, some of the things in spreadsheets, my God, that we're still all using today. And I will always use Excel for the rest of my career. So anyway, but so it was, I think SAS VA was one of the first things that we tried out, and that failed miserably, I think, or at least it didn't fit our need. I wouldn't say it failed miserably, but Tableau came on board and they needed guinea pigs. And I said, I want to be your guinea pig. And so that collaboration got us to where we are today. And it's funny, Luke Haba and I were talking, if you guys know Luke, during the keynote about now everybody takes a lot of this stuff for granted because it's built. It's there. These servers are there. The absolute just support that EDM and that team and those guys and EADI and all of them have put into training people, bringing folks on board, noting that they don't have the resources to handle a campus this big. So they need people in pockets in these developers. How do they support that? And then how do we recognize that you need those people within there, right? And that collaboration to work has been incredible. We are not successful without this collaboration. I don't think anybody could be successful in any department on their own without spending an enormous amount of resources that honestly is not going to be there. So it started with the Tableau, it started with the reporting, it started with the data that we still have a long ways to go. We're still working on getting access to cleaning up, modeling a lot of our things. But when Jim came with some of these other ideas, RPA, using generative AI, how could we start to augment people's work? I think the director of analytics and our analytics team is kind of a misstep. We are information brokers. How are we going to make your life easier? Because to be quite honest, we're selfish. We're trying to make our lives easier. But the less you have to call me to get this information that you can get and you can do yourself, the better my day goes. The better I can get that email inbox down to zero. And if you guys don't know, you can route things right into your trash folder. That's how you get it down to zero. Like everything from Jim just goes straight into the. I'll talk to him later about it. Yeah. So we reached out to the folks that we have collaborated with for so many years. Found out that they were actually doing some of the stuff in the RPA arena. And so we asked, can we invite you in? Could you guys kind of talk to us about it? And guys, we had 35 people attend that first meeting. And the first idea that popped up was we have an individual, we monitor all the utilities and pay the utilities campus. And so all of our water comes through the city of Atlanta. And as you can imagine, we've got hundreds of water meters and each one of them is a different account, right? And our friends in the city of Atlanta will not give us one big data dump of the bills and the money we get. So for many, many years, every single month, we had an individual that has to go into the city of Atlanta and download every single account bill, one by one, transpose that information over into the spreadsheet so we can do the chargebacks to it. They've been doing this for years. That was the first idea that came out of this meeting. And we said, all right, stop. We don't need any more ideas. This one, do this one now. But that's where we started. And they're actually developing that for us right now. And we're going to be in user testing by the 11th. And the individual who has been doing that all these years, she did not want to be doing that all of these years. But didn't have that really space or just that opportunity to say, okay, is there a solution? I know there's got to be a better way. I don't know how to get to it. I don't have anybody within our organization that knows how to get to it, but there's got to be a better way. And we're providing that kind of area. So much so that we've taken somebody from my team and moving them into basically a representative for RPA on our side, not to develop RPA themselves, but to find those processes that we can develop into RPA to then hand that over to the developers on the OIT side. So they don't have to spend time trying to tease that out. That's our job. That's what we should be doing. We should be prepping these folks. If you ever get consultants, if you ever get all these things, do the groundwork. It's your responsibility. Do it and identify it. Identify what you have processes for, identify what you have bad processes for, and fix them before you program them, because it's not, you can't blame the developers at that point. They just put in what you handed them. So having that space and the generation, this is the one, for those of you that worked in the data field and you have people that want to report and everything else too, you know how difficult it is to pull out of them sometimes what it is, because it's a difficult conversation for them to discuss it. If you walk in, they say, we do a lot of ad hoc reporting. Oh, you have no idea, what it is that you really need, or you don't know how to verbalize it, because it's tough. It really is. But now we have that spark. That's what Jim was talking about. Now we have, oh man, they just fixed that utility bill thing. Oh hell, I do the same thing over here. Like, come fix my thing. The financial areas, all those sorts of things. And so I got to tell you, it is the same feeling that I have had bringing dashboards and data to people for all of these years, right? But we kind of level out on that, and now we get to the points where it's a little bit harder to spin those things up that were kind of easy to do. But now we're finding other ways to kind of support and do those easy wins as well with the big impacts. So.
Good segue. Let's move a little bit more, and I've changed slides. I know y'all can't see this. I'm going to the next slide. Let's talk. I think that was a perfect segue. And there was something I wanted to start with. Jimmie is the person that when we're trying something new, he's our friendly person because we know he's gonna be there. He's gonna work with us and he's gonna try it. And I think in those early days of Tableau, right, you weren't just a member of self-service. You helped define what self-service was going to mean. Right. And I think we're seeing a very similar collaboration now with RPA. And I think that that's very important because in IT, people don't always know what the problem is. Right. They may have a solution. They may have a theory on how to help you, but it's coming to the table with that information ready. It's just so much faster. Right. Like finding those examples that you were describing. I think, yes, that's it. I think I told Jimmie, I was in this initial meeting. I said, we're going to save $1 million and it's going to be easy. It was small things with big impact. These were not heavy lifts necessarily from a technical perspective. I don't think there was a question in that. That was just what I was thinking because I wanted to add my 2 cents. But let's go on from there and let's go into maybe some other specific examples that y'all have seen because I think that there's really multiple building blocks that you hit on, right? So let's loop back around to that data management piece, right? So laying some of that foundational work. How are you seeing that? Some specific examples of that, and then how are you seeing that setting up those other generative AI and robotic process automations?
So part of it is we're wanting to make sure that all of our enterprise systems that we know what data that we want to share between them, as opposed and really build around a really well thought out format, as opposed to not thinking about it and having chaos every time we try to connect something to something else. Because if we know the types of information that we may want to combine and share between systems, and we keep certain structures, like for example, one of Jimmie's databases is the space database. Well, it's pretty much our Bible for what buildings are called and information on it. We don't need some other system to be the space library also. And so we're trying to define, kind of hopefully a little more clear than the Abbott Costello who's on first, but it's who's on first. We want to have, we want to make sure that if it's an asset system, then it's going to dominate that series of information, but it may share from a space database, which the space database is going to be master of that information. So that's where a lot of our time is right now, seeing how these systems are going to connect. We're launching a project management system, and we're trying to get our data, basically an archive for our other information together. And all those things you have to know which is going to be the lead system for it. So
it's so cool having a boss that knows what the hell he's talking about. He makes it so easy. Yeah.
So I think you gave a great example on the robotic process automation. I know we've got a backlog of projects there. It's going to be a whole lot. Let's talk a little bit about generative AI and some of the vision that, Jim, you had initially and how you're seeing some of that come into action.
Well, so I love AI. I've got areas of it that I don't ever figure out how to do, but the one that I see, we're going to recreate a call center this year, our customer service center. And one of the things we have in INS is a lot of different sets of information and everything. And so one of our goals is to have kind of an AI bot that would grab a lot of that information from people who are interfacing with us, or work order or help, in any number of different ways. And I see that that's probably my first bus stop on the AI bus trip. Now, long term, those million data points that I have, AI should be able to look at those data points, help you rewrite logic paths for controlling my systems when I have key sensors fail. So imagine a world where one sensor that's telling someone what a temperature is supposed to be in space, and and your AI notices that one sensor's wrong, knows what everything should be at to achieve temperature in a space. So many degrees outside, how fast should the fan go, how much should the chilled water valve be open. It can rewrite the logic for it. And so why is that important? It buys time. Because if the system doesn't just break, then we can schedule it in to be repaired, and the system holds itself in good shape until we can get to a scheduled repair. Right now, we can't do that. So the whole thing is, if you can get a system that can take care of it, steady doing those types of things, eventually you are going to have to fix it. You don't want to let every sensor go bad, but you should be able to do with AI. I'm happy with that. So.
I think it goes back to building that culture to let people be comfortable and understand that they could use AI to augment their everyday jobs, and they should be. And we're getting into an area where we don't have the resources. And most of us, and not all of us in this room, have to float so far outside of our training, our education, what we're comfortable with and what we're doing to do some of these other types of things that we may not have a lot of background. If I asked everybody in here to raise their hand who had ever used Google and you didn't, you're either lying or you used Bing to do it instead, which is gross, but everybody's done it. AI is just it's just an evolution of that. You're just having a conversation, you're asking these types of questions again, and we talk about this quite a bit. It will not replace that human interaction. It will not replace that need to understand and interpret the information it's sending back to you. Guys, the questions that he's asking now, after I asked him if he would moderate it, and I said, yeah, I'll go ahead and supply the questions to you, I ran straight to AI and said, hey, these are the types of things I want to do in a moderated session. Here's the topics that I want to kind of talk about. Help me come up with some questions. I didn't take them word for word, and then I repeated that, and I asked the chatbot back and forth questions, everything else to augment this to make sure that we would have success, because I've never generated moderated questions for somebody before. I've never created a charrette for an entire new space system that I'm replacing now to understand how I got to replace a system we've been using for 23 years. It helped me get started. It didn't do the work. It didn't do the PowerPoints for me. It didn't have that, it's not sitting in here having this conversation, but it saved me an enormous amount of time to be able to do these things, to augment it and give my team the freedom to be able to do that in their roles. And then now what we're doing is we're trying to proliferate that among even wider, showing examples about how people can augment some of the things they're doing as we're preparing to put in a new project management system. Don't have all the answers, that's okay. Here's another tool you can use to try and get those answers. Brent's waiting for me to plug him on this one. Because this is where this is, I'm telling you, man, he's broke. I got an open check over here. So we brought Brent in to talk about AI, and we encouraged him. It's like, okay, we're gonna get a good collection of individuals across our organization. Some who are already using it, comfortable with, some who have had no idea, had never used it, and just seen everything in the news about how kids are cheating on their tests, right? And came in with these preconceived notions. And the idea is that get this group comfortable. Now we're going out among our different individual units, because what they need in capital planning is way different than what we need in infrastructure, way different what our folks out in landscape need. How can we, can they take advantage? What are those different things that they can do? I'm that guy. Sorry. But yeah, it goes back to, I had some folks that were using it already, didn't tell me they were using it, right? Because they felt they're like, okay, I'm cheating. No. I need you to take advantage of these to do those types of things I'm asking you to do, to take those things that would normally take an inordinate amount of time to get off your plate, because I'm going to be putting this as we go along. And we've seen awesome bit of success. So again, another plug to that collaboration, reaching out to folks that were in this arena, knew a little bit more about it, and could come in. And the other thing that Brett was doing is even teaching those of us that have been using it. Here's how you can augment. Here's how you can grow what you're already been doing, and then eventually get to the point like Jim's talking about to automate some of these things. That we're not going to be replacing people because we don't have physicians doing these things now, right? We just need it done.
Last question. You have a vision.
All right, so if you think that direction. And around everybody and smile like that. I need to know the direction we're heading and encourage people to go that way and use them to have. A lot of direction is service tools for how they use it. Whether it's even this stuff, you're getting a lot of help from down the road. There are parts of we're still everyone comfortable with someone that the whole group starts moving one direction, because if you bottle it up right, you won't unleash that energy of your team. That's really what I'm looking for is we'll have some rules. We're not going to let people do really dumb things. But not. But the whole goal is to get everyone doing something, learning technology, feeling comfortable do it. And then at some point have it, it's less about your organizational structure. It's about connections that your team members make with each other. It's just like our OITs, they're on my team. They don't work for me, but they're on my team. Got a lot of people around you. He's on my team too. The more we build these networks and teams and then feel comfortable moving forward, I think the best thing we can do is talk about the direction, aim that way, and get everyone in that direction. And I really think it's better if you have a bunch of consultants to keep you doing something or unethical that you don't bridle them up so tight that they can't perform and do their best work. Because we're really looking at freeing people up to do their best. I'm doing jobs. While I'm doing jobs, while I'm doing best work. So you might as well create an environment where they want to do their best. And that's really where I like to free people up. So.
Well, I know I was here to keep y'all on time, but I forgot to ask someone to keep me on time. So we're 2 minutes over. If we have, I think we have a few minutes before lunch, and if y'all are interested, we can stick around and